Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer, who is completely out of her comfort zone today, as Eric, our guest, has organised a recording studio for us today, and we are absolutely winging it, but it has been awesome. Without further ado, Eric Berrill, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
is a little bit weird to hear ourselves speak. Yeah. But, we'll get there.
It does take some getting used to, but thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for making time to be on the show as well.
Thanks for having me. It's always enjoy talking business and work and what we're up to and what we can achieve.
Eric, I thought what might be best is if you could walk us through. Now, I know you have a number of businesses, which is great to see. Perhaps would you like to walk us through your role in each of those businesses and the name of those businesses?
Right. So there's a few. There's Chewy Mooey, which is me and my wife founded back in 2014. There's Nork Solutions, which is the successor of my family's cattle farm feedlot. And then there's Agritech, which is the vehicle by which we'll be taking some of the innovations that we've developed in Nork out to the rest of the world.
And where did it all start? If I can ask, did you have one of the businesses first and it's kind of expanded as you've been going?
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky and I believe lucky in that I was born into a farming family. And I've known for a long, long time that was an option to me. It wasn't a thing I had to do, but it was a thing I could do. Mum and Dad kept me very aware of that. So from a very early age, I was aware that this, first off, opportunity was there, but also that this path was there. So, we didn't know, obviously, that it would end up here. It was a cattle feedlot. It was fun to go along that route. And also, I don't know, when you're 15 and you can see this route here, it changed my thinking on what I would be achieving. It gave me a much, much longer perspective. You can think in 10, 20 years as opposed to 2, 3, 4, 5. At 15, you'd be thinking about finishing school and university. Instead, I was thinking, obviously they were there, but I was also thinking about, okay, if I go this route, what am I learning here that could impact there? So, I was very lucky to have that, I believe. And then also the flexibility to take it if I wanted or not. And then what we did in Nindi, the cattle farm, we were never traditional farmers. We were focusing on byproducts, excess production from manufacturers and how we could use that in our activities. That's become the foundation for Nork, doing that locally. And then obviously Agritech, let's take that international. So what was the question?
So the question was, how did it all start? But I'd love for you to expand on what it was like growing up on a farm, because I remember last time we met, you shared, how that impacted the way you sort of, your perspective on the world.
God, I was pretty tired last time we met. I don't remember what we spoke of.
Oh, it was a great conversation, by the way.
Oh, good. But so it was a bit hybrid because it wasn't the traditional farm in that, a lot of people would be familiar with hours out of the city, town, anything, boarding at high school. Because we were getting waste from manufacturers based in Perth, we were still living in Perth and going to the manufacturers, loading up the truck, and then going out to the farm. So we specialise in bread. That's our core focus. We have dabbled with some others, but bread is the bread and butter, if you will. It gave an interesting perspective. So the farm was first in Mundajong, on corner of King Road and Mundajong Road. It's now a brewery. At the time, Leach Highway was the end of the freeway south.
Okay.
So we'd have to go out through Kenwick Link, that avenue. I'm getting nervous.
No, not at all.
And I'm using the wrong words.
That's fine.
Nicholson Road, not Kenwick Link. That's where we go now. Anyway, so we were going out Nicholson Road, and it'd take a lot longer. It'd be 40 odd minutes. Now it's 20. But it's interesting also going back to the farm now. Well, now to see somebody else's vision for it. It's a brewery and a pub. So.
Oh, right. So it's changed to that, has it?
Yeah. With the rise of development of Byford, it's brought more people into the area. It's still pretty isolated, but it's pretty cool to see somebody else's vision for it in that place. But yeah, then when we got too big for that farm in Mundajong, and then later on moved out to Westdale. That would have been the early noughties. But in that, being on a farm, it's pretty you're isolated.
Yes.
Whereas in the city, it's a benefit to have codependencies and lean into other people's specializations. On the farm, not so much. If you needed a part that you didn't have, when we were at Westhill, it's an hour and a half drive to go get it. So,
wow.
So it taught a fair bit of resiliency in the sense of forward planning on if this is a critical part, have it on site. And then sometimes, if you don't have the right part, how are you going to make it work anyway?
Yeah,
it still has to do the thing, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine there would have been a lot of planning that had to take place as well.
Yeah, you'd expect.
Yeah. Like us today.
Yeah, but sometimes it was seat of the pants. Sometimes it was like, didn't see that coming. It was a learning process for all, yeah, but that was a lot of fun. It also, having the luxury of space and all the tools that we had out there also bred a different way of thinking. It was necessary sometimes to not do it the right way, but do it a way that worked. And sometimes modify tools and modify vehicles to suit needs, or, this part that I have isn't quite fitting in, so let's cut out some to make it fit.
Yeah.
That is something that I often reflect on, in that focusing on function over form has been a consistent benefit to me throughout my career.
Yeah, and I guess that would also impact your thought process as well, because you have to become very resourceful, you have to think outside the box, and I can see how that would impact you as a business owner as well. Yeah,
sometimes it drove structuring priorities in the sense of, okay, this could be a bad long-term decision, long to medium-term decision, but it's good short-term. It needs to work now, so I'll make it work now. And then I'll get that part, great example, using medical gauze as an air filter on a motor. It's not the best, but it'll do for the day until we can get the filter. You know what I mean?
So it definitely makes you more resourceful.
Yeah, that's a word for it, yeah. An engineer would call it agricultural engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you find having that upbringing as well has affected how you approach challenges?
Well, yes, it'd have to. I would, off the cuff, say yes. We are, in my belief, results of our environments. So yeah, it has formed, and I do find it useful to have that thinking. That sometimes it doesn't matter how it looks; it matters what it does.
Yeah. And also walk us through, considering you have 3 businesses on the go, did you find at times growing up on the farm there was quite a few things happening at once? Has that given you that ability to kind of, I don't want to say multitask, but I guess you're really great at handling a few different situations? Because as we know, one business is a full-time job and you have 3. So do you mind to walk us through that? Or perhaps if you have an example in mind that you're comfortable sharing?
So this could be a huge answer, it could be a small answer. Did you want me to go big, broad on it?
It's completely up to you,
okay.
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, look, 3 businesses, it depends on how you structure it at the end of the day. And once again, prioritization of time. Which one is the most urgent? If 2 crises happen at once, which business is suffering? And then also identifying, how do we not have 2 crises happen at once? Delegation and also of tasks and duties and so on. Also structuring of business activities. You know, if a function is one that could develop a critical immediate failure or potential for a failure that would be fixed by immediate time, maybe that function needs to be outsourced if you have, you know, if you're going to have 2 or 3 priorities. But look, for me, that's a very high level, broad kind of, feels a bit nothing answer. If I was to bring it to my experience, there's a few things going on here. Obviously, for most people, the advice would be, or the best behavior would be not having 3, having 1. There are a few things going on there, though. I am neurodivergent. I'm ADD. It is beneficial sometimes to have different things going on.
Yes.
That you can jump from. I'm also... I'm the kind of person you'd want at the helm when the storms are coming in. But if it's smooth sailing, you don't want me there. I get bored and I'll get distracted.
Right.
You know, you don't want the guy who loves uncertainty to always be at the wheel, because you'll find it driven into uncertainty. Yeah.
Fair enough. Makes sense.
And that's one where Harvey is the CEO of Nork Solutions.
And that's your beautiful wife, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's simply a few years ago recognised I'm not the best person for it here. The skills that got us here are not the skills that will get us there to the next step. And it wasn't the best use of my skills and talents. And so, but how Chewy Mooey, I should walk then the genesis of them. Chewy Mooey came about because I was working with Dad on Nindi, the cattle farm, and for me, I was working there when he was setting up. I went full time pretty much straight after high school. And that's when we moved from Mundajong up to Westdale. Before that, I'd been working after school and weekends, you know, that kind of, and holidays. Farming, family tax, 100%.
Yes, as one
life.
does.
Yeah.
I haven't had that, and I grew up not in a farm.
Yeah. My mate Wheezy, who's an accountant, introduced me to the notion of family tax.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
100%.
Do you want to walk us through for our listeners who might not be familiar with that?
The notion is that you work for family and you don't get paid.
Yeah.
The family tax. Yeah. But yeah, so I'd been working for Dad. We'd been working together, and we moved out to Westdale, and it was huge growth. So of course, low profits, and it was Dad would benefit from help. He never needed help, but he would benefit from help. So I started working there on a profit sharing basis, given we didn't make profit till year 4.
Wow.
And year 4, I quit. Oh, not quit. I went from, quit is too hard a word, but year 4 was when I went, okay, I'm going to take time for me now. And I went and I travelled for 5 months. When I came back, I went to uni and I went back to work on the farm around that. But it was for me a case of, okay, it's set up, it's fine, I will come back to this, it's in the family, let's go. Of course, when I came back, I did not get profit sharing. It was paid a wage because I left. Yeah, right. Family tax strikes again. But so I came back and we were working together, and I finished my uni degree, and the farm was pretty smooth sailing. Dad's aim was not to grow it. Dad's aim was to get retirement set up.
Okay.
And so I got bored and went and set up Chewy Mooey. It came about because you have to shoot kangaroos. They show up in droves, destroy your fences. If you get there, shoot 1 or 2, and then they don't come back for another 6 months.
Oh my gosh, I could never be a farmer.
Well,
that'll be my pets.
So there's a thing in there. You've hit on a thing that the feeling that led to Chewy Mooey. For me, what I felt in farming, it's important to be grateful, to have that You're taking a life. What is it for? So to shoot them and throw them away, there's a global protein shortage going on. I do believe that there's an industry, like we're one of the few nations that just throw it away. There's an industry there in of itself. But so I started harvesting them, and there's only so much kangaroo you can put in the freezer. So started making jerky out of it, and then that led to chewy mooey, and then chewy rooey is one of the flavors. And that was 2014. 2018 came around, and Mum and Dad wanted to retire, or did retire. Me and Harvey took over both, and that's when Nindi became Nork, and it wasn't at the space. Dad was an owner-operator, so we got to work on putting in structures, processes, management team, distributing tasks so that if one of us get hit by a bus, it continues to operate. But we couldn't do that and Chewy Mooey. Chewy Mooey was still in hard growth stage. So we sold it. Hard decision. Many drinks poured out for it. No, it was not fun. It was selling your baby.
Of course, it would be hard.
Yeah, especially we spent so long growing it. Like it's fast moving consumer good. We were still in building in year 5. It was the first 3 years were hard building. We started seeing results in year 4, and in year 5 it's like, okay, we got to sell this. Like early year 5. By the time we're looking at, okay, it's
actually progressed. That would be hard.
And then so we sold it. Went to work on Nork. Got that to a place where it runs. We've distributed tasks, delegated. It's not all on us. And then the guy who bought Chewy Mooey, he had some personal stuff going on, and then he bought it in like early 2019, maybe mid. COVID was right around the corner. So between his personal stuff and then getting slammed by COVID, in a lot of our sales we had 350 retailers across Australia.
Wow.
It didn't go very well for him. I'll put it that way. So we got an opportunity to reacquire it a couple of years on, in 2022, I think it was, and it was very lucky to.
Oh, great! So you acquired it again?
Yeah, and now we're looking at restructuring it, as I said, in that way where we did everything ourselves before. I come from agriculture, and it's a case of do it yourself. We made everything, marketed, so on. When it comes to food manufacture, the only the only real competitive benefit you can get is economies of scale. So third-party manufacture should be the way for food manufacture. Obviously, there's you can look at, you got to differentiate the product, but that's a branding exercise, not a manufacturing exercise.
Yes.
So we've been taking this opportunity to restructure it and look at third-party manufacturers that we can use.
Great.
And then we will focus on the flavouring and the branding and marketing, and I think I moved too far away from the microphone there. We'll focus on all the things that we can excel at, that we can provide real value at, as opposed to, manufacturing. But and then on top of that, I'd been looking at. So we built our machinery. What Nork Solutions itself does, we take excess production from bakeries and turn it into livestock feed. The biggest part of this is separating it from its packaging. In 1 ton of bread, there will be 2,000 wrappers.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
So when I say we, it was mostly Dad developed the machinery that will do that. I held stuff in place while he welded it. Look, I'm minimising my part. I've continued to work on it and develop it in the ways that he established and taught me. But now it's of a position. I was looking at that. Why we moved away from the farm. It's not once again focusing on what we can do and what our real competitive advantage is. It wasn't farming. It was the depackaging. It was the equipment that turns it from waste production into livestock feed.
Right.
So, and the farming was necessary at the time, because if you wind it back, when we started, it was when Dad started. I include myself because weekends and holidays. Yeah. I was 13, but I was there. No.
Yeah.
When we started, DPERD didn't exist. It was Department of Ag. It was questionable whether or not they would have appreciated byproducts as an efficiency, as a, circular economy wasn't a thing, sustainability wasn't a thing. Instead, there's a good chance it would have been identified as a risk to the cattle industry.
Oh, right.
A lot of the research that has been done wasn't about then. So we were arguably first movers in the space.
Yeah, because it's only probably, the last decade, correct me if I'm wrong, that's become, people are more aware of sustainability and the impact we're having on the environment?
Yeah. I'd say less.
Less, yeah.
It depends on, where do you draw the line? Do you just put it back to when the research started coming out? Or do you put it back to when people started agitating for it? Or do you put it to when it started showing up in marketing?
True.
So all of these are very different positions. You're talking very different, some very different truths there. But in terms of being out there, I'd say less than a decade. Like maybe last 5-6 years has it been a thing. The term circular economy, I remember discovering that 2 to 3 years ago. I'm like, that's what we've been doing for 20 years.
Yeah, amazing.
But point of that competitive advantage, what we were focusing on, our strengths. So we moved away from farming. The family held on to it for, I think it was a year, but in that time we only visited it 4 times.
Okay.
And while we were nostalgic and romantic and loved it, somebody else will make better use of that. So Mum and Dad sold that, better for their retirement as well.
Yeah, of course.
And then, we focused on the bread processing and fine-tuning that and turning it into livestock feed. And we've also experimented with others, pelletizing and making using seeds, and there's a bunch of other things that are very fun and exciting for me. I don't know about for everybody else.
I'm good.
Look, there's a big opportunity here, and I see it as, especially when it comes to a staple like bread, a food staple that has to exist and has to be accessible. There is, now I'm getting into a whole other ballpark, but there is an argument for it to be overproduced. There is, for me, an economic point that it should. The optimum production point is over zero because it is low marginal cost. It is all fixed cost, not variable cost. The fixed costs are logistics and staff and labour and rent. The actual thing, the actual product, like an apple, most of what you're paying for is everything except for the apple.
Yeah,
and it's sense. The same across most basic foodstuffs. So there's an argument for overproduction because any missed sale averages up the fixed costs, increases the cost per unit. If we had what economics would call it perfect logistics, if we had perfect logistics, sure, we can have it at zero, but perfect logistics is when I decide that I need it, it shows up. And there's no logistics cost. The logistics cost creates a slippage because we can't have it exactly where it needs to be. And where we see overproduction, so typically here you'd expect overproduction, depending on the bakery, for it to be anywhere from 12 to 30%. In places, South Australia sees 2 to 4%. They also experience localised shortages. They also experience, they're not businesses like mine in that space because it ends up at the shop getting thrown into the bin with the other organics. And then that goes to traditionally landfill. How did we end up here? The cause for overproduction. Yeah, I got distracted. I went off on a tangent.
That's all good. It makes sense what you're sharing as well.
Yeah.
Eric, it sounds like your dad or your family is a key pillar for you by the sounds of things. I'd love to know, was any characteristics that either your dad or your mom displayed that have kind of stuck with you and given you your work ethic?
Yeah, So I could never keep up with Dad. Dad came, well, neither of them, to be fair. Both
really?
of them, yeah, both of them grew up in Ireland. Both of them under, we'd call it poverty now. Dad was in a family where if grandma wasn't in the kitchen, the kids would be raiding it for food.
Oh, right.
And they were just, what do you call it? When it's farming straight into your sustenance farming.
Okay.
I'm not using the right term.
I'm not helping.
Yeah. But, so they were, they grew up in a level of poverty that has motivated them all the way through their lives.
Right.
So I could never keep up with Dad. When we moved out to Westdale, we were working 7 days a week.
Wow.
Because we had to do so much building, setting up the feedlots and ramps and sheds, and it was a whole thing. After 3 months of 7 days, I apologised to Dad and said, I can't. I need at least one day. And Dad's like, oh, no, I was waiting for this. Dad said, yeah, take two. Like, if you feel bad, come up on a Saturday. I will ask you when I need you, when we're doing jobs that are better for two people. But I couldn't keep up. And
so he would just keep going?
Yeah, he did it for something like 2 years.
Oh, my goodness, 7 days a week?
Yeah. Obviously,
Wow.
every now and then there'd be a day off for a thing that needs to be done at home or whatever. But just that motivation, that drive that comes from having grown up in that kind of poverty.
Yes.
It gave me a gratuity for make hay when the sun is shining. Like, instead of, so it was interesting when I was starting to agitate for Harvard to become CEO of Nork. She had certain levels of guilt around it. A sense of, do I deserve this? It's yours. It's your family stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm there going, no, it's ours. You're part of my family now.
Yes.
Also, I'm not the best person for it. For me, I was seeing it as we're obliged to make the most of every opportunity that we're given. Harvard was seeing it as, do I deserve this? It's still gratuity, but in a different way.
Yes, and I guess she realizes the weight of the family's sacrifice and everything everyone's done as well, and perhaps that might be why she was, feeling so undeserving. But yes, I think we all struggle with that unworthiness.
Yeah, and that imposter syndrome is still there. It presents in, I'm sure, different ways, as many different ways as there are people that experience it. But it was that was one for me. A call was to be very grateful for what we have. Been born, just Christ, in this stable government, with this, we can have food in the fridge.
Yes, it's a privilege.
Yeah, so that's a core part of it. Another was interesting that I wasn't aware of until after I'd married Harva, or she married me.
Yeah, get it straight.
Yeah. We have an interesting, the family unit is, and I don't know if it's mum and dad, I see a lot of it in agriculture as well, where it's a team. It's very much a team, and in agriculture there's often traditional roles where there's guys out there doing the labour and the woman is doing obviously traditional housekeeping stuff, but also the finances, the ordering fuel, ordering all these other bits, making sure that it's all in place.
Yes.
Right, so now we don't follow that structure, that traditional structure, but it is very much a team. Like, I have a lot of friends who are like, how do you work and live with your wife? And it's like, how's it any other way? Obviously, there are different roles and there are different hats, and we need to have firm rules about when we're a couple and when we're business partners.
Have those boundaries in place, right?
Yeah, and when we're, no talking about work after 5 p.m, all that.
That must be hard, though.
Yes, especially I'm ADD. Turns out Harvard's ADD, of course. Birds of a feather flock together. But we only found out.
You understand each other, though.
Yeah. Most of the time.
Yeah.
But part of that can be obsessiveness, and having to put that aside, and not feel like I'm working on this. Why are you not?
Yeah.
It's not how it works. It's unreasonable, it's unfair, and also it's not productive.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so there are a few takeaways, but I'm sure everybody has learned many, many things from their parents. I'm very lucky that what I have learned, and it can be directly applied to my life and our life, I should say.
Yeah. A lot of what you shared resonates with me because my dad was the same. He didn't have a very privileged upbringing, and he's just got this work ethic like I've never seen. Like, I thought I'm driven, but he is like next level. And I think by the sounds of it, your dad and my dad are chip off the same block, because he will just not stop. And like, whether he's, the human elements of being exhausted, mental fatigue, like none of that seems to impact him, and he just keeps going. Like, even when we lived in New Zealand, his job got made redundant, packed up his suitcase, came over to Perth and was like, right, let's just start a new life. And it was a bit like, when we got to the recording studio, and you've got that same, characteristic, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not much help. And you're just like, Tracy, just plug that in, do this, do that. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's just go with it. So it's actually really great because, for myself, I do like things to be organized, and it was actually just really good to kind of wing it and just kind of go with it at the same time. So thank you for that.
There's a few bits in there that you've hit on that I want to expand on. One was, one of the things I think, seeing Dad in that, if you've come from that level of poverty or any level of poverty, right? You don't want to go back there, but you know how little you can get by with. So I think there'd be a certain level of freedom in that, especially Dad when he was looking at moving out to Westdale and probably playing with the numbers and keep on.
That's all right.
And playing with the numbers, and a level of income that would stress somebody else may not stress him. So he could invest more and take bigger risks. Then you hit on the other piece of, you went from parents. The guilt that I felt not being able to keep up with him. It took me years to go, that is unproductive. And to go, I am not him. I am a product of a different environment.
Yes.
And my parents, neither of them wanted me to be them. They wanted me to have better than they had. And part of that is to not have an anxiety over making money and have a bit more free time. But for me, it was interesting to go, I do need these. If I'm to be productive when I'm at work, I need to have these things not at work. And I still sometimes struggle with that, with making room for that, but at least I'm accepting it. Whereas once upon a time when I was younger and seeing Dad, I would have tried to fight it. And to be fair, maybe fighting it would have diminished or made me use better and more efficient in terms of having downtime. But anyway, how did we end up there?
It's a great point that you mentioned, because I think so many of us, when we do have a parent or parents that are very driven, we put so much pressure on ourselves to constantly, always, get A's, always perform at school, uni, like always be top of the class.
I think for me it's one of identifying what we need to achieve our best self, and it doesn't, it's one of the reasons that I hate this grind and hustle
culture.
Because sometimes you need to not grind to be able to grind the best, to get 100% when you're doing it, you need to not. So there was a thing when I went from working on the farm into working in Chewy Mooey. There's this concept, diminishing returns of labour. Now, if you're on the farm, once the cattle have been fed, they've been fed. You feed them anymore, they're not going to do it faster.
Yeah.
In stepping out of that, exists in agriculture, it doesn't exist in many industries. So when I set up Chewy Mooey, I say I because Harvard joined me full time. Maybe 6 to 8 months after, but it is very much a we. So, when I stepped over into it, I didn't have the concept of having boundaries from work. If something was there, you do it until it's done. There is no done in a lot of businesses. So by not having that diminishing marginal utility, return on labour, I just kept working. And what I ended up with is each hour I was there was actually less productive than if I had capped it. I remember having a day where I looked at the last 3 days going, what happened here? I didn't get as much done.
Yeah.
And then when I started capping the amount of hours that I was willing to put in, my output at each time. I got a lot more done in the time that I left available for myself.
So more productive.
Yeah, because I didn't have unlimited time.
Yes, that was me in the first year of business.
Yeah.
Like, just go for it. Something needs to be done. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. And you're just like a headless chicken running around. And you actually, because I'm not my dad or your dad, end up burning yourself out to a whole nother level. And for me, I found the boundaries got blurred because I was working from home. I was just, always Tracy working. There was no Tracy downtime. Tracy, the creative, or Tracy that goes to the gym, because work just took priority for me. And I guess, we don't know what you don't know, but I've definitely found by implementing those boundaries, it does really help you function at a much better productivity rate.
It also, that this is one of the ways that, having 3 businesses works, by capping the time that you're going to put into each one, because then you prioritize, this needs to be done in this time frame. I need to work really, really quickly for the next hour. I had a major crisis this morning, which I managed to get done in the space of hour and a half. I didn't get my hair cut, but I'm still here, So learning those bits, learning that, and capping your time allows you to then be more productive and prioritize better and have multiple, for me at least, pokers in the fire. So it's also important to me to diversify, not have all our eggs in the one basket. So having, if Neurotech takes off, we will know. We'll be over in UAE at the end of this month having conversations. Yes, I wanted to ask.
That. Yeah, if you're comfortable to share a bit about that, if you can, or share what you can.
I do want to cycle back around to once again this before we move into that, cap off that last. It's another reason why I hate this talk of hustle, grind. You got to be there. No, it's easy to fall into that ego trap as well. And I'm too busy. I'm doing all this stuff. And meanwhile, you haven't been to the gym for 6 months. We know you're more efficient when you go to the gym. You look like shit. You feel like shit. You're not getting it. But you have that ego going. I'm too busy. You got to burn that ego. You got to make time for the
completely
things. Get that 100% efficiency when you're working. Anyway, Neurotech. So yeah, we'll We're about to, on the 30th of this month, we're jumping on a plane.
Soon. 2 weeks.
I can't believe it's like, we'll be flying over and meeting some significant businesses in the region.
Awesome.
So some 2 tier 1 airlines keen to talk, have indicated they want to talk with us. And when you're dealing with Arab Peninsula, we won't lock anything in until the 20th. So we have, we want to meet. The date and time, it's too soon to talk about that. We'll do,
Of course.
Yeah. So
we'll have to do a take 2 in the studio.
Yeah. But so we have expression of interest from a few. But I will get off of that. That'll be the next flag for milestone for, yes, this is happening. Let's keep putting time into this. If it continues to go ahead, we should have a plant operating October-ish.
Brilliant.
Maybe end of October. It may trickle over a little bit. I am an optimist. But it will definitely be in place before end of the year.
Yeah.
And then we take the next step to looking at, okay, that's the pilot plant. Runs for a month. I know that there's nothing that I've missed. A nightmare would be to have 30 plants up and find out, here's one break in your processes that you didn't consider.
Yeah.
You got to answer 30 phone calls and panic. So have it run for a month, and then we'll know, is this viable to continue to expand? It works on paper. It's very different in reality.
Yes.
So, that's the other bit of diversifying. Nork is a fantastic business. It's bread and butter. And now we're looking at taking resources from that into others. So, and that's what we're looking at as well with Chewy Mooey, relaunching Chewy Mooey. It can't be, having third-party manufacture stops it from being a critical, I'm not going to get a phone call saying the beef didn't arrive.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So I can have that tapping away in the background. Maybe it won't be as big as if I did it all in-house, but that's okay because it's still, I'm just diversifying a bit. I have a few things going on, which is, for me, useful for my risk assessment how my risk tolerance, and also for my ADD, this is how I get the best out of myself.
Yeah.
Instead of doing what works for others, doing what I know works for me. Anyway, how did we end up there? Jeez,
I don't even remember. It was just, it was great.
It just kept on going. More things to talk about.
Eric, I wanted to ask, if you could go back to your 15-year-old self on the farm, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give yourself now that
watch
you
out
know?
Make better choices with women. No, I had look, one piece of advice. I'm very much a believer of we are where we need to be. Either we've yet to learn the lesson of why we shouldn't be there, or it's where we should be. So I was at 15. Look, I had those opportunities in front of me, and I did make poor romantic choices, but didn't we all for a bit?
As we all did at 15.
Yeah, and then you kind of, I was still making him at 20, but you learn. But yeah, in terms of, I don't know, one piece of advice.
Oh, even two or three, just, what would be?
So one of the things that being ADD has taught me is the importance of processes. I remember, so it's very important to have a pocket knife, on our farm at least. It's a very useful tool.
Yes.
Being ADD, also I was fighting that as an identity for self.
Okay.
So I wasn't medicated, and I was regularly, as an ADD person, losing stuff. And one day I knew this, I'd misplaced my knife, but it had been gone for 2 weeks. So I was like, it's time to go get another one. It's gone. Went and got another one. And then the one that I lost showed up. So I had two, and I put one on the shelf for when I'd inevitably lose the one.
Lose the other one.
Yeah. One stage I had 3 knives. But what I found off of that, I was never inconvenienced by not having a knife again. By fighting what I needed, because any other dickhead can.
All
Should
good?
I be swearing? Okay.
Of course, it's fun. It's edited. It's Real Biz Life Chronicles. Everyone says dickhead.
I am practicing not swearing. I'm meant to be going to the UAE where they're all well-mannered.
Oh, it's all good. You've been authentic.
Like, anybody else can figure this out. And here I am, unable to hold on to a knife for any amount of time. And I'm beating myself up for it. I wasn't accepting that I had these behaviours. To be fair, I was, teenage kid that you want to, you're not accepting of your differences. But by fighting that, I lowered my capabilities.
Right.
Instead of improving them. Yes, it is important to not lose your pocket knife. But if you know you have a track record of it, have 2 or 3 so that you can cycle it in and then continue to practice not losing them while you have the backup by stubbornly insisting that I not do this thing or be better at this. It had significantly worse outcomes. Yeah. So now I'll have, backup keys, backup of lots of things. If I need to go out the door and I can't, we've all had it, can't find your keys.
Oh, often. That's why I have a bowl and it has to go in the bowl. Otherwise I lose them.
So I have that process too. Come in the door, there it goes. But sometimes it gets lost. But I have now spares in that bowl. I have the one that I'm using.
That's a good idea.
And then backup. Yeah. Simply because I've identified, you know what, this is a weakness in yourself. Yes, practice it, get better at it, but don't let it be a weakness. Have a process that stops it being a weakness.
Yeah, and kind of work with it.
Yeah, that would be my advice to myself. Being more accepting of self, but not in the sense of, how there's this love yourself notion. Sometimes it annoys me because it feels like it's saying love your failings as well. Accept your failings, forgive yourself for having them. Don't let them sit, keep practicing and improving on them. Yes. But also know that if that is a weakness, have a backup.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, as opposed to stubbornly insisting that, no, I've got one knife, that's all I need.
It's funny, I think I have that thing with shoes, hence why I have 200 of them, 200 pairs, so I always have a backup. Someone said to me, do you realize you probably could never wear each pair twice in a year? I'm like, I don't care. I can have the choice, variety, whatever I want to wear. They are there.
This is not the bottleneck in my process. I have opened it right up.
100%. Eric, what's one thing that you potentially, what's a fear of yours?
How much time do we have?
Well, my next one is at 3 p.m, so no.
I don't know.
Or maybe what's the bravest thing you've ever done?
Oh, well, look, if we're talking direct fears, I have a fear of heights. So I love bungee jumping and skydiving and so on because you get a bigger adrenaline kick out of it. I regularly rock climb. Actually, less regularly than I'd like, but...
and that helps with the fear?
No, God.
I was going to say.
No, it does. It has. Look, for bungee jumping, it took me 15 minutes to jump off the platform.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Skydiving, somebody else did the jumping. And then rock climbing, yes. But sometimes it comes back. But I have noticed it diminish until a few times when I've been hungover.
Right.
And then on the wall and look down and, yeah.
And then just keep going.
Lock up, seize up, yeah. But I think maybe if you're looking at, like, in terms of real fears, it'd be better to look at my motivators and drivers.
Yeah, of course. Please share.
For me, I do these things to avoid that place. So for me, part of it is I prioritise relationship. Me and Harvard, we're doing very well. We're getting great success. We're learning every day and improving ourselves and each other and our relationship. And but early on, it was a case of, you know what, none of this matters except for each other. That is a motivator. So for me, it'd be losing Harvard because it'd be losing that cause. Meaning the purpose. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Other fears? I don't know. Yeah, I think that's really it.
And that's really beautiful, by the way, what you just said as well.
Oh, don't tell Harvey. She'll never let me.
I'm going to need a tissue. I'm going to cry on my own show. Well, Eric, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck with all the exciting things that you have happening. And, and I'm sure your family are so proud of all the things you have achieved. And it's been great learning more about you. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be in the studio today and wing it with me. It's been really cool. And I need one of these Rode recorders, I've just learned.
Thanks for having me. And, as proud as you... Yes, to an extent. No, my parents, yes, they are very proud, but they're also very cynical, skeptical in the sense of like, I'll believe it when the money's in the bank.
I think it might be that generation. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. Eric, where's the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
No, Harvey, not me.
Okay, great. We'll pop Harvey's contact details.
Look on LinkedIn for Nork Solutions. Or Eric Berrill. You can follow stuff there. We don't post as much as we should. We have a heap of content that we should be posting, but we're looking at putting structures in place for that. For a long time, we were flying under the radar with what we were doing. And now with the sustainability movement and circular economy, it is worth getting in front of it now and promoting a bit more. But it's time.
There's always the right time.
Scant resources, all that. But if Nork Solutions would be the best to follow. We're talking at Turning the Dial. We do show up at a lot of Perth events. It is important for me to network, especially coming from agriculture, where it is quite a beyond that. I don't know. Where do people normally? Oh, I think we've got an Instagram. Oh, Jesus, I'm not good at this.
That's all right. No problem. We'll pop all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today, Eric.
I appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.